From next year, financial education will be embedded in the school curriculum for years 1 to 10. For younger children, it'll be the basics like want versus need and what is a bank account. For more senior students, it'll include budgeting, investment, interest, taxes and insurance to help build lifelong financial skills. Neil Edmond is the founder of MoneyTime, an online financial literacy program for children aged 10 to 14, which has just been awarded Best Primary Product at the Global EdTech Awards. He's on an advisory group working with the Retirement Commission to support the implementation of financial education in the new social sciences curriculum. But he says parents need to start the work at home. Neil, kia ora, welcome.
Good morning, Catherine. Thank you for having me on your show.
I'm just envisaging trying to discuss want versus need with your average 5-year-old. It's challenging with your average 25-year-old and frankly sometimes your average 45-year-old. But nevertheless, we can try age 5. Let's first of all talk a little bit about what's coming with these curriculum changes. Are you a fan of this move?
Absolutely. Financial education hasn't been mandatory in the New Zealand schools curriculum until now. It's been treated as more as an elective subject. Fortunately, most teachers at primary school level certainly believe that it's something that should be taught, and they have been teaching it, but it hasn't actually been embedded in the curriculum until now. So what this means going forward is that they're no longer questioning where it fits in the curriculum. There's going to be very clearly set out what subjects it needs to be taught in and what needs to be taught. So it's a huge step forward in terms of financial education for our kids.
Look, we know from the time they're out of school, student loans, buy now, pay later, compounding interest, all these things are stuff you need to understand if you're going to stay out of trouble. And also to flip it, like it's really great seeing some of these initiatives coming through now, starting Kiwi Savers for kids. It's a nice gift to give. There's some of the rounding up that a new fintech's doing and one of the banks is doing. You can round up your purchase and put those cents into a savings account. There's the negative and the positive side of managing money poorly or well. How appropriate for the 10 to 14s? I don't know how much detail there is out about the curriculum, but how appropriate is it? Do you believe it's pretty much appropriate to age and stage?
I'm not sure, to be honest, Catherine. The financial education has been embedded in the financial mathematics strand in the curriculum. However, that really just uses money as an example for arithmetic or
Right.
for equations. The core content for financial education is going to be in the social sciences curriculum, and that the draft of that is due to be released this month. And until we see that, we just don't know exactly what they're going to have at each year level.
Gosh, that'll be
So
interesting. When you think about all the things like asset building and who starts ahead and who starts behind and all of these things, the impacts. I don't know if they'll get into any of the sort of social inequity side of things, but look, let's see what comes out. Can you talk about when and how parents should start teaching children about money? My colleague's got a good question. We learned about money because we got given, I think it was probably back in the day, 2 cents, maybe 5 cents, went down to the local dairy and bored the poor old dairy owner for half an hour with our lolly selection. So we had a physical, tangible thing called money that we occasionally got our hands on, and we could mentally work out how we wanted to spend it and what we would get for it. How does that work now when cash is, there must be some kids who've probably never seen it.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think my kids are all left school now, but when they were growing up, we had in mind that we were going to pay them cash for their pocket money. But as it turned out, the whole faffing around of having to make sure you had enough cash to pay them at the end of each week, when typically we're paying for everything digitally, it just became a real hassle. So Well, I think these days it's going to be easier for parents to help their kids understand what they're spending their money on and how to save it because there are various apps out there now that are available to parents. For example, you've got BNZ's U Money for Kids, which enables kids to um, generate various um, savings targets or goals with progress bars in them. Or you've got another app like Square One, which has various pockets where you can set goals for different things that you're saving for, as well as see what money is coming in and going out from your account.
At what age,
So
though, are those apps likely to be useful to kids?
um, the with I think there's usually age restrictions on them. So I think the banks probably and Square One have figured out when those apps are going to be appropriate. However, from a learning perspective, I actually don't think that kids fully understand or start to understand the consequences, the concept of consequences for their actions until they're sort of 10, 11, 12.
Yeah.
Up
So
until
what are
then,
you
it's just
teaching?
very transactional.
What are you teaching the very young ones? I mean, some of these are principles that go beyond money. Actually, you don't always get what you want immediately, is one thing,
Yes, yes.
and sometimes you have to put some effort and work in towards a goal to get what you want. These are sort of underlying principles. But at what age do you bring money into it, and how?
You make some good points there. I think that one of the key things to teach young kids, and I think sort of 5 years is probably about the earliest you could start. That is just the value of money. That things cost money, and they can start to figure out why things cost more than other things. I think that's a really helpful thing for them to start with. I don't think that they really start comprehending financial concepts like investing or insurance or KiwiSaver until they're in their early teens. So that's when I'd be starting to get kids involved with the apps that I talked about, or and ensure that they're getting this sort of education in schools, which happily they're going to be.
The role of pocket money again, because this again is this early understanding that you don't just get what you want by saying, I want it. And that if you particularly want something, you can put some effort into saving for it. At what stage does pocket money become useful as a means of teaching even those kinds of principles?
Well, I think, like I said, 5 years old would be appropriate. That's when we started getting pocket money when I was a kid, and I certainly remember the days of the post office book and the stamp for your 5 cents, which doesn't sound like a lot now, but it was enough, plenty in those days. So yeah, I think that even as early as 5 years old, you can start teaching them the value of money.
Okay, let's come to that older cohort where, again, there's also kind of there's another element to this. Like, you don't want your kid to become money obsessed either. You don't want them also to think that money is the only reward from an activity or the only reward or the only reason to do something. So you might want to be doing this along with, hey, why don't you help so and so just because it's a good thing to do, right? Not just because they're going to flick you a few coin. So there's all sorts of kind of moral issues around this as well. But there's no doubt that understanding, as we said, the positives and the negatives that can come from managing money well or poorly is critical for them. And how and when do you begin to work through some of those key principles? You've mentioned that older group, maybe 10 and up. Where do you start? What kinds of principles do you want to start establishing at that stage?
I think one of the principles that you can establish probably around the 10 years plus age is that money gives you choice. I take your point that we don't want our kids to become money obsessed, but having money is inherently a healthy thing because it gives you the choice to spend on yourself or on your family or to be able to help other people. So I think that's a concept that we can bring in fairly early on in the piece. I know that in our family, we sponsored a child in Cambodia through World Vision, and that was from when I was 5 years old. So
Good
my mother
point,
was teaching
actually.
me.
The concept of giving and charity is actually probably something you want to introduce as a concept alongside the same time as, and we want money for things we want to do. That's a really good point.
Yes, absolutely. And incidentally, we still sponsor through World Vision. And so that's what, 40 years on,
Mm.
more. Um, so that was a principle that was embedded in our family from a very early age, and it stuck. And in terms of other things that we want the kids to be learning, we want them to know what things cost. And when I was growing up, my parents didn't tell me what things cost. So I didn't know how much the grocery shopping was each week. I didn't know how much my father earned. I didn't know how much a house cost. I didn't know how much it cost to go to the movies. All of these things were taken care of without talking about the cost. And so it came as quite a fright to me when I left school and was responsible for my own financial outcomes, to realize just how much things do cost. So I think it's important that we have conversations with our kids and we're honest about how much things cost, so that they start working out for themselves how much things are going to cost them in the future, and then they can plan for how they're going to obtain those things.
You don't want to burden them either, and I know this is a big issue in households that are really struggling financially. It's a fine line, isn't it? There's so much that you want to protect them from the very real financial pressure you're under, but you want them to understand the concepts that things cost, and that there's not a bottomless kind of supply of money for everything we want right when we want it. You don't want to create financial anxiety in kids. It's a fine line, isn't it?
Yes, I agree. And fortunately, I haven't been in that situation, so I can only sort of guess as to how that would be in reality. But I still think it's important that parents are honest with their kids about what their financial situation is, because I think if you paste over it, they grow up with a sense of not really truly understanding how the finances in their family work. I think if they've got the knowledge of how they work, reasonably early on, they can start planning for how they're going to improve their situation. And with programs like MoneyTime, that's what we do. We give them the knowledge and the confidence to be able to get ahead or improve their financial situation. So I think having that, clear, honest conversations with kids, this is how it is for us, but this is what we're doing to try and improve that. And
Yeah.
here are some things that we can do to get ahead and make it better for our family.
The idea of loans, and again, this is when we're into the sort of student loans situation. Very interesting to see more of these courses coming on, going back to the old. There's obviously plenty of apprenticeships schemes running, but the idea of degree level apprenticeships, the train while you earn while you train. One wonders if more and more of that's going to come back. Because people don't want those big student debts anymore. They're going to become more and more popular. But the idea of compounding, of debt, pay now, buy now, pay later is a big one, isn't it? It's a good learning curve to say, yes, you can get it now and pay it off, but here's the interest you're paying in the meantime. And by the way, if you don't pay it off, here's your penalty. These are the sorts of, again, you want to be constructive about how to build financial assets, save and build and be able to do things, as well as teaching the reverse, which is what can happen if you get behind and stay behind.
I absolutely agree. Teaching kids the pitfall of debt when you're not in a situation to be able to pay it off. Um, because the debt can spiral. The interest owing compounds, and you can just end up going down and down. And if you don't have a plan as to how you're going to pay the money back, and if you're not an ability to pay it back reasonably quickly, then the item or service can end up paying you an awful lot more than what you first thought. That's definitely a strong lesson for kids to learn, especially in these days, as you point out, of instant gratification. Kids are used to getting what they want pretty quickly, and certainly faster than what we were when we grew up. So we're fighting against that. And the fact that they can get easy access to debt, certainly when they leave school, they've got credit cards and we've got buy now, pay later. Um, there's various tools that they can use to access money. Their friends are doing it, so it's commonly accepted. It seems like the thing to do, but what a lot of them don't realize is how much of a trap that can be. Because, as I said, if they can't make the payments when they're due, the interest increases and they can just end up spiraling downwards very quickly.
Yep.
You make a point about the student loans. Student loans, I believe, are one of the positive reasons that you can borrow money, because ultimately they're going to be improving your ability to make money in the future. And so it's what I would consider a student loan good debt, because it's something that's going to increase your value or increase your ability to create value. I think what a lot of students are doing these days, though, is they live beyond their means. So they have to borrow just to support their lifestyles. And so what they find is they're coming out at the end of their tertiary qualification with these massive debts, which they then have to pay off before they can start thinking about building a deposit to buy a house.
Well, don't start
And
me on the days when there were student allowances. No, seriously, I'll tell you why the student allowances were beneficial, even though it seems counterintuitive. When you were paid something, when you had an income, your instinct was to try and stay within that income. When you get nothing, you start racking up debt. It's just out of sight, out of mind. There's no motivation. There's no goal to try and limit. And that's why I think that's one of the worst moves that has happened in this whole scene is I don't even care if it's $50 a week or $80 a week or whatever. In student allowance, that idea that there's money coming in and you work perhaps on top to top that up and you try and limit how much you borrow, that took a hiding some years ago now. Obviously the positive things of investing early, and this is where the KiwiSaver and perhaps someone gifting a KiwiSaver from a very young age, and you can see how something grows and you can see the constructive side of compounding interest. Let's just finish though with the way kids learn these days, and the getting motivated stuff. Are there lots of sort of gamified financial learning platforms and so forth? Tell me a little bit about what works in terms of giving them real experiences, but in ways they respond to, right? Ways that they can get involved with and have a bit of fun with.
In a schooling context, that's what we provide through our MoneyTime program. There's 30 digital lessons, but they're gamified so that they earn money or virtual money as they go through the program, and then they get choices as to how they can use that money. They can save it, spend it, or invest it, or give it to charity. And so they get used to making their own financial decisions and seeing what the consequences are. There are some other programs available in schools that do have an experiential component, but they don't go as far as what we do with MoneyTime. Outside of schools, I would come back to those apps that I referred to earlier, whereby they're called chore apps or pocket money or allowance apps. Parent can pay money into the app or into the account, and it's recorded by the app, and that they pay money for doing the chores, and then the child can see the balance in the account, and they can choose to transfer it into other pockets or other accounts that could be savings accounts, or that they set themselves goals or targets to save, and they can see how they're tracking towards those goals. I think that's a very helpful and real practical way that kids can see where their money is going and
Value
what they're doing with it.
Exactly. Neil, thanks very much. Neil
Yes.
Edmond, who is with MoneyTime, founder of MoneyTime. Lots of wisdom coming in from you, as always. On this one, We noticed our kids had no idea about cash when we played Monopoly about 10 years ago. How do you play Monopoly with people who don't know what cash is? Must be even less cash being used now. This person says, when I was very young, Mum gave us a notebook. Each page was divided into ins and outs. That gave us discipline about writing down our spending. Very basic ledger. Good stuff. I think one of the best lessons, says Donna, sadly learned too late, is to think how many hours do you need to work to buy something? So if you want to buy a movie ticket, how long do I need to work to pay for that? It gives you an idea of priorities. One more here. In our family, kids' pocket money, they save a third, spend a third, and give a third. Thank you as always.